What's up, all you cool kids, all you goobers of the internet? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and today I'm very excited because we are doing a co-reaction with the man Phil Bozeman himself. Now, for people of my generation, Phil Bozeman was probably one of, if not your main, reasons for wanting to get into harsh vocals, metal vocals, screaming, whatever you want to call it. So I'm very excited to talk with him, and we're going to be checking out, well, I'm sure he already knows about it, just a hunch. We're going to be checking out the new Whitechapel track, A Bloodsoaked Symphony. I have yet to see it. I'm very excited to see it. And we're going to be talking vocals. We're going to be having a good time. You've seen the other reaction videos. It's going to be very much the same format. Now, if you're new to the channel, again, my name is Mark. I'm a vocal coach, predominantly specializing in gritty, gurgly, nasty, disgusting metal noises. I'm in 3 bands myself. Kardashev is currently the most active. We've also got Never Breath and Viremia. And we take the reaction format, we break it down, we make it educational. So hopefully you walk away entertained and having learned something as well. If you like the content, like, share, subscribe, all those things I'm supposed to say, or my business partner will slap me. And if you really like the content, just check us out on Patreon. We have monthly events specifically aimed at vocalists. One tonight, actually. And then you get to vote on one reaction video every month. So it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's a good time. And with that being said, I'm probably only forgetting 1 or 2 things. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. Phil, let's pull you in. What's up, man? How you doing today? How you feeling?
Not too bad. It's a Monday. It's just normal Monday for me, I guess. Nothing crazy. Just still living in a pandemic-ridden world. Well, and trying to get through it.
Yeah. Well, we'll hopefully try to have some fun over the next hour or so here and distract ourselves from it. Now, the most important question for anybody who follows you on Instagram, this is the most important question. How are the pups? How are the dogs? How are they doing?
They're good. I usually take care of them better than myself. So, not really, but kind of. But no, they're good. They're just laying around sleeping and waiting for me because they pretty much, wait for me to do anything. Yeah. If they're not engaged with me, they're just laying down sleeping somewhere.
Dude, if my wife leaves the house, my dog almost goes into a coma. She's at work right now, obviously, and she'll just become a lump on. And actually, that reminds me, I have a very interesting story to tell you about how I met my wife in Whitechapel. But we'll get into that. Yeah, this is a good story. I'll tell you later, though. Just so I don't forget. So before we jump into this song, now this is totally up to you. You can leave me completely blind, no context at all. But is there anything about this song or the album that y'all have coming out on the 29th of this month, or the story behind it that you want me to know, or do you want to leave me in the dark, like throwing darts with the blindfold on? It's up to you. One makes my life easier, though.
I would say it's, it's hard to really make a decision on, just because I almost want you to go into it not knowing, but at the same time, for the sake of the video, maybe, you'll just be like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. But I mean, it's basically, this song is about, because the album itself is about me and my own evil alternate self. And it's directly after the Valley. So this is chapter 2 of our last album. And this is me in my teenage years. And it's a fictional take on a non-fictional story. So
interesting.
It's basically me leaving the Valley and then my evil self following me out. And it's kind of like an alternate reality. So at the end of the day, it's still me. I'm still both people.
Right.
But it's all in my head. So, but for the sake of storytelling, I'm telling it as actual events. So, cause in a sense, it's not actually happening, but it is happening at the same time, cause it's all in my head. It's like a kind of almost like a delusion, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's this video is all about the evil me, and it's about me creating this realm. My evil self has this created this realm, which is basically the valley after I left. So it's an evil, dark, like just place that's like on fire, just dark and depressing. And this is me, my evil self, trying to resurrect my parents, to just for so they won't be dead, obviously, and for us to live back in the valley. And this is him trying to conjure this ritual. And eventually what his end goal is is to find me, pull me back into the valley, and keep me there, because without me he can't exist, because he's not the real me. And the longer we stay apart, he's eventually just going to die off, and he's going to just wither away. So he has to keep me close to him to exist. So but this song is just a part of the story where the evil me is trying to resurrect my parents, and it's talking about the realm that he's in and how he got here, and things like that.
That's awesome. That makes me, so this song isn't going to be just like, this is a metal song and we're going to talk about monsters and aliens and killing people. This fits, like, this is a puzzle piece in a greater whole. And while I think that there's certainly a time and a place for a metal where it's just like, what are the lyrics? I don't know. I wrote about killing people. Who's to say, right?
Yeah.
But I always at the end of the day, like stories that have a somewhat shadowy narrative, and that's what it sounds like this is going to have. So I'm really excited to check it out. And actually, unless you have anything to add, I'm stoked. I say let's get started. I say let's do this.
Yeah. All right.
Can
dive right into it.
Hell yeah. Okay, so for everybody who's watching, I'll say it again because that's how you do these sorts of things. Let's check out Whitechapel, A Bloodsoaked Symphony. Let's go.
My conscience froze when I felt the cold embrace of the hand that crafted me. I set my soul ablaze. I crawled to the nether and left the suicide ladder next to my own severed head. I think I should be dead, but that's the beauty of selling yourself to save. But again, we are men, craving winter's end, wishing to live within our origin again.
All right. Already there's some seriously cool stuff to talk about. So, first and foremost, like, I love the shadowy vibe of this video, and like these extremely detailed like forest shots, and then we go back and it's just like it's just you sort of hanging upside down with blood running down your face. Like we have this maximal shot and sort of like this minimal shot as well. Yeah, like right here, this is terrifying, but in such a really cool way. So I don't usually, like I've said it before, I don't usually go too much into cinematography because it's not really my thing, but I know that I like what I'm seeing here. So this is really cool. Now, I want to ask you a little bit about this first section here, because, oftentimes with vocals, we talk so much about the sound, right? We talk about the sound of the metal vocal. But I think before the call, you and I were talking about doing vocals at home or singing at home by yourself is a totally different ballgame than like singing for a record. And so I think a big part of being a vocalist is finding your vocal patterns. And you're doing these really, really interesting, like sort of pulsing motions where you're going along with this pulsing dum dum sound of the song, speeding up, slowing down. What's your process of finding metering and patterns for songs? You just sort of feel it out, or do you sit down and close yourself away, tapping on your desk to find the right pattern? How does that go?
Yeah, I mean, like I am a huge fan of hip hop. I grew up on hip hop. Of course, metal and punk rock and stuff too. But like, as far as like the vocal patterns and stuff, I really like. I'm more like I'm more influenced by like Southern rap, like 3 6 Mafia.
Yeah.
And then of course you've got like Texas rap, like Houston rap, like Scarface, and like the Houston rap isn't really like the fast kind of like weird cadences and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's 3 6 Mafia was a huge influence for me, and they're just really fast and like really like they have like cool rhyme schemes and stuff. It's kind of like with the first one that's kind of like, I crawled through the nether and left a suicide letter next to my own severed.
That's the part, man. That's the part I was going to mention. I was like, yo, you're spitting bars there, dude. Like, yeah, that section is so cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that section is so neat.
You're good.
Continue.
Yeah, just like, and then the next one, where it says, but again, we are men. It's like, but again, we are men craving winter's end, wishing to live within our origin again. It's just like I like kind of, it's kind of like an upbeat rhyme, like it's like like kind of on the upbeat. But yeah, just kind of like it's just like it's hard to explain. Like I've grown up listening to rap and stuff, and I've just those like weird and like interesting rhyme schemes just interest me, and I love writing stuff like that. And that's what that first verse is like. Just got like a lot of like it's not just like you're just ending rhyme,
Yes.
it's all like within the bar.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, I mean, it was because with the way the rhythm of this song is too, I just felt like it called for that, just some sort of like kind of just like spitting rhyme,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, of course, it's just kind of got that head bobbing beat to it and stuff. So it kind of spices it up a little bit.
Yeah, it gives it a little bit of that. That flavor, that seasoning.
Yeah,
and I'm so glad to hear you mention hip hop and rap, because I am such a big proponent of metal vocalists listening to it. It's like, you don't have to like rap. There's nothing wrong with not liking the genre. Although I think if you give it an honest try, you obviously, but people out there would enjoy it. But I always tell people, like, we're such a percussive instrument, right? And so getting into, or at least familiarizing yourself with rap and hip hop is a great way to go. Like, I've been obsessed with Ski Mask the Slump God. He has the music video version specifically of Burn the Hood has some of the coolest patterns and some of the cool. And I listened to that and I'm like, I wish I was as good as this guy. Like, I wish I had this kind of flow. I've been doing this for over 10 years and I have nothing compared to this dude. But anyways, cool. That's so awesome to hear. Let's go ahead. I want people to listen to that again. So if you're watching this video, we're going to listen to that section again. And I want you to pay attention to the way that Phil isn't just matching the beat. He's getting ahead of it, playing with rests, moving behind it, all very deftly. Let's go. I think this is good. Let's give it a try. Yeah. Oh, it's good. It's good. It's good.
My conscience froze when I felt the cold embrace of the hand that crafted me. I set my soul ablaze. I crawled through the nether and left the suicide letter next to my own severed hand. I think I should be dead, but that's the beauty of selling yourself to sand. But again, we are men, craving winter's end, wishing to live within our origin again. The torture immortality is set.
I want to pause it real quick there. There's no good time to pause, so we just live our lives here. But one thing that I think is really interesting, and you were telling me about this before this call, is that you were saying, like, in this album and kind of in the Valley as well, you've moved away from like all of those like super niche, like crazy tones to something of a more emotional tone. And I want to talk about that a little bit here, because I'm hearing a lot of it. We're probably not even to this part of the song you're talking about. You're probably like, Mark, just you wait. But I'm hearing a lot of modulation. I'm hearing a lot of movement that you're doing. So even though you're not necessarily, at least so far, hitting like crazy highs and super guttural lows, there's still nuance. Talk to me a little bit about, I know we talked about it briefly, but talk to me a little bit about how you add emotionality to such a maximal vocal style. Because these screams, especially to people who aren't into metal, they all sound, it's like it's hard to add subtlety to screams, I think is what I'm saying. And you're doing it very well, especially the way you said the word gut. Whoa, that pull upwards. Chef's kiss. So yeah, talk to me about that. How do you try to add emotionality to such a heavily textured vocal sound?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I guess the subject matter just really like pulls it out of me. Like again, with like the last album and this album, like, there are the little guttural kind of stuff here and there. But for the most part, this is like a story, and like, just, I want my words to be, understood without having to pull up a lyric book. I want just to hear like my emotion behind it. Like I'm just I'm just at the microphone, just just letting it out. Because like we were talking about, the guttural stuff is just more or less sound manipulation, and you're not really. I feel like with guttural stuff, I'm just not really putting in necessarily the emotion behind the scream, because like it's just that big breath and that big release is what just really gets me. It's just just letting it out. It's like, you're just at your, it's like you're at your worst, you're just like, you're tired, you're just sick of everything, and you're just really pissed off, and you're just like, your natural reaction is just to, sometimes whenever you're really mad, you just need to let out just like a, let it out. And that's what this album is getting across, is just like, I'm angry, I'm just yelling, I'm just, because it's an emotional album. So I mean, I just get in there, and like I just let out. Like, I'm not trying to sound a certain way, I'm not trying to do it in a way that's, like past albums where I would just try to sound as gross and as deep, and I was worried more about the sound and not about like the actual story.
Right.
So I think there's going to be some people that are going to be like, I want gutturals. That's all I want. I want gutturals. But like, for me, it just doesn't make sense for the subject matter. Sure. So it's hard to really know what I should put where, considering like I want it to be emotional, but I also want to have like that old school feel to it as well. And just kind of like that break right there where it goes a little bit more like kind of like a guttural sound. Like it's a little change up, it's a little change up from the sound, and give it a little bit more of, I guess, like an evil sound, with that like deeper kind of guttural sound. And I felt like I thought my placement in the album, as far as like the lower tone stuff, was good, and just like the verses and like the main storytelling part of the album is just that just raw, like just emotional voice. And that's just what I went for, and that's the way it felt it should be.
Sure. It's working extremely well here. I want to ask you a quick question about how Well, and you said something very insightful when we were talking earlier. It's like when you're upset, nobody drops a guttural when they're upset. Like even like
Yeah.
the most famous well versed metal vocalists, like if they get terrible news, they're not going to be like dropping a guttural. They're going to be wailing a little bit. You know what I mean? So although
Just silly to think about.
yeah, like I can't imagine that. Now, one thing I've noticed. Now, granted, all I've ever seen is like live performances and stuff, right? But one thing that I think is interesting is a lot of the times when you're bringing your vocals lower, and I could be totally wrong here because, like I said, I try to spy things out when I'm watching like a live performance. I get an angle on you turning this way, and I'm like, oh, there it is, right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes, what a lot of vocalists will do is they'll do a guttural by pushing their lips forward amongst other tongue manipulation things here. So they're doing like more of this. Ooh, right? Ooh.
Yeah.
I've noticed on a lot of yours, you actually kind of tighten and bring your lips in. There's more of an
Yeah.
like this sort of shape. Is that what you're doing here to kind of bring the tone lower or something different?
Yeah, because like mostly for like the deep stuff, I tend to like curl.
Yeah.
Like curl forward. And for some it depends on the sound because like I've told people people that are like aspiring vocalists or aspiring like trying to be in a band and do whatever, I tell them just instead of using just your voice and your throat and everything, you have to use your body too because like turning certain ways because all of our anatomy is different. So like turning your body a certain way or your head a certain way, just like do whatever you have to do to make that sound, whether it looks silly or what, that just is what it is. That's the way you have to make the sound. So yeah, I mean, whenever I do like lower guttural stuff, I tend to like, kind of hunch a little bit. And, yeah, I mean, and like the more mid-range stuff, I kind of like, I feel like, I definitely like turn my body a little bit to the left, to my left, and kind of look to the right a little bit. And that's just where it feels good to me. And the positioning I use for those like mid, like, kind of like sounds.
Right.
But like the most of the stuff you're hearing now is just straight up, just like whenever I was in the studio, I mean, I'm like this, just standing up straight, just like letting it go.
Sure. Yeah. And I get maybe not a lot, but I get a fair amount of my students asking about that. They're like, should I be hunching? Should I be like doing all this stuff? And it's a tricky game to play too, because like if like a lot of times, like when we're performing, we're bending at the waist, like, and we're headbanging and doing all this, but our instrument is still straight. I always say like tread lightly with tucking and turning, because you can even hear like the effect that has on the glottal area here, the space, around and between the vocal folds. If I just hold like a normal breath, so if anybody new is out there and you're like, oh, I'm gonna just like tread very lightly, but like like bending. I've even experienced this live before, back when we played live like 6 years ago. Bending down while keeping the upper torso straight can give you a little bit of oomph, like sinking into that support, like sort of sitting like in your pelvis. That sounds weird, but like that sort of sinking sensation can be really helpful. But yeah, that's super fascinating. Anything else about that before we jump back into the song there?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've always kind of used as like a fundamental way that I scream and do that stuff is I kind of look at it as like kind of like weightlifting. You don't want to just like lazily, just be loose and flopping around everywhere. Like I do like a, kind of like the brace, like you brace. That's like one of the most fundamental things to me is you're kind of like flexing. You're basically flexing whenever you're doing it. And I kind of use the analogy of like what it feels like whenever you're pooping, you know, like you're like just doing like the little push, you know, because that's how I like with mine. I just kind of do like a, you know, and then I project the sound then I start to activate like my throat and like my diaphragm. That's kind of like the basis of it. That's how I've kind of figured it out. That's just me figuring it out on my own, you know. That's not me like asking like, you know, someone like you or whatever that, you know, that does the deeper studying into it. But, you know, just like I can kind of just, you know, not necessarily like putting a mile into it right now, but you know, just do like I start out with like a and then I just push it like that.
Do me a favor, because like you can't diagram your scream in front of me and me not get interested. That's like putting a steak in front of a dog and expecting the dog not to eat it, right? Like it's just unrealistic. So would you be able to do that again, but with a more open mouth, like a more open mouth versus the more of the just out of curiosity? You totally don't have to. You do not need to feel on the spot. If you're like, Mark, I don't feel like it, hell yeah, and we'll move on. But if you want to, could be kind of interesting to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I could just do it like how I did it before, but then just like start to open up and stuff. Like, I just do the brace, and this isn't obviously how I would do it live. Like, I wouldn't like be showing an example live like this,
of course.
But that's just how I kind of discovered it. Like a
interesting. Yeah. That's so cool. So you have a slightly different way of finding it, but you know, so many of the screams that we use are so heavily based on the arytenoid cartilages, right? And these are two like little round cartilages that sit above your vocal folds in the back, and you're sort of like revving your motorcycle engine, bringing those together, and then you have like almost a tonal phonation coming through that, which is probably what gives you a lot of that tone. Now,
well, live there wouldn't be that rev. So like if it was live, it would just be right at it. It would be right at it wouldn't be, the RPM wouldn't slowly go up. It would just hit the RPM.
Exactly.
Like you know, kind of like a you know, it'd just be instant. Whereas but discovering it, that's how like I kind of started, you know, with like the, you know, just kind of,
you know, that's a very
I'm like tightening right here. I'm like kind of like flexing my chest whenever I'm doing this.
Interesting. Okay.
And I can feel like my like airways, like, you know, just kind of like do it, like, again, like the weightlifting analogy, like just flexing.
Where do you feel that the non-vocal nerds are going to be like, skip 2 minutes? Where do you feel, because we absolutely do have to have engagement in our airway to create these sounds. Out of curiosity, where do you feel the engagement? Would it be more like underneath your tongue? Do you feel like it's right around your vocal folds?
As far as like the power of the scream, where it's coming from,
where the space is, where the muscles are engaging, if you're feeling any muscle engagement in your throat, or does your throat feel mostly relaxed? Does your throat, I mean, like relaxed in the context of like if you're playing basketball, you know, you're activating your legs, right? You're activating your arms, but overall you're pretty relaxed, so you can be like moving around people and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on which one I'm doing. Like with that one, I'm feeling most of the activation like right here. Like right in here.
Can you specify where right here is for me? Because I've got you covered by Adobe Audition. So
well, it's like it's kind of like collarbone area, not like on my collarbone, but like just below my throat. It's like it's almost like it's like my lungs or something. Like my, that's where I'm feeling the most activation with that certain type of vocal that I'm doing.
Sure.
Of course, like high ones, you know, like I'm feeling it like in my sinuses. And if it's like a real low one or something, like that's more of like sternum. But like the mid stuff is kind of like around the collarbone. It's almost like, you say it like high, mid, and low. Like it
Sure.
literally is low, mid, and high. Like the highs are like more like head. The mids are more like in my sternum, not my sternum, but like where my collarbone meets in the middle, but just below my throat. And then the lows, like I feel them more like literally in my gut, like gutturals. I feel them in my gut.
Okay. Yeah.
But as far as like, I guess, because obviously we're using our vocal cords and our throat, no matter what kind of sound we're making. I would say probably like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like in I guess is that the larynx or the Adam's apple or...
Yeah, depending on where you're feeling it. And actually that sound, like that sound you're using there. Now, I'm going to make a similar sound. It won't be the same sound. But if it like here, like a similar, like there's actually no vocal fold activation on that. And I didn't really hear a lot of vocal fold activation on you. It's all these little flappy bits above, which is like the crazy wild thing about it. Like if you were to take that sound and then release just the distortion, right?
Yeah.
It's just air, right? Well, that's all super fascinating and fun to talk. I mean, you and I could probably like sit and just talk about vocals forever, but I guess we have a song to listen to, so maybe we should maybe we should get back to that. But I am, for everybody else, and I have the subtitles on so people can follow along with the lyrics. But everybody, I'm gonna go back maybe to 110 because I feel like that's where things. Oh yeah, you've got like the wheelbarrow, so that's where about things change. I want people to listen to the way you say gut because it's just dirty and gross, and I love it. All right, a long held out scream into silence is basically the universe telling me that this is where I should pause because something usually happens. You know, one super interesting thing I'm noticing about your vocals that I've never paid attention to before, and I really only noticed it over the past 20 seconds, so take this with a grain of salt, but we have a sound, a sound that we make when we start vowels, basically, right? And it's called a glottal onset. You've probably heard of it, or probably know a lot about it. But it's the right? And a really common thing with a lot of deathcore and death metal vocalists, is to switch the glottal onset with a yeah, like Mitch Lucker did a ton of this back in the day, right? So
Mhm.
I would be yai or ry or y, right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't hear you doing much of that, and that's kind of fascinating to me. That's really just kind of a characteristic of your voice. I don't really know where to go with that, but it's just like, you don't hear the sort of like softer lead in on those do you do that intentionally? Like, because a lot of vocalists, I'm not going to remember these lyrics just reading for the first time, but let's say a line was and then they told me that I was wrong, and then they told me that I, right, the I in that I is kind of jumping off of that sort of linguadental flick of the D sound, but for you it's a lot more. And then they told me that I, right, and then they told me the bump, right. Is that an intentional choice you make to give the words more of like the lyrics more of a staccato aggressive feel, or is it just kind of what comes naturally?
Yeah, I mean, I do make it a point to like almost be like I'm talking. That's kind of like how I go about like writing lyrics, and like just how I perform them as well. I want it to be almost like I'm talking, because like I don't like to have like weird, awkward. Say like if you have like a say like you have like a thrash beat, like a
yeah.
So like there are vocalists that just kind of follow it. They'll just go. They'll say like the words like, I don't know.
I know what you mean. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
They're it's just, it is like kind of just, like I walked down to the store and bought a bag of candy. Like, I walked down to the store and I bought a bag of like they just kind of blah, 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 blah. And then like, it just, this like, and then they'll just keep going like that. And it's like, there's never like, I talk as if like I'm putting periods and commas and, ending a sentence kind of thing. I just want to be like I'm talking. But as far as like I know what you're talking about, like saying like, I know there's like one popular one, like it's like with Blink 182, like he doesn't say like my head, he says my yed.
Exactly. My yed. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if maybe it's subconsciously. I just do that. I don't know if it depends on the context. Like if it's this, I think it depends on like what I'm doing. If it's like a guttural or if it's like a mid, high, whatever. Yeah, I think it's really dependent on the context. Now, like in this voice, I'm probably not going to do it. But like for like gutturals and stuff, it's really hard to have like a stop in the, like, it's like you almost have to like continuously do it. So it's like you almost have to have like those what would you say they were called?
Glottal stops.
Yeah, so
or glottal
assets, so like if I was doing like a guttural, I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't go my head, I'd be like my head like that instead of. It just depends on what I'm doing.
Sure.
I would definitely try to pronounce it as best as I could, but I'm still going to probably have that. I'm probably still going to have the Y connect with the H, the yed, my yed. And I'm not going to go my head, like.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really dependent on what style I'm doing, I think.
I think a lot of the reason why that happens, because a lot of vocalists they'll think about, metal vocalists, harsh vocalists, they'll think about these things, but then, such as you're saying, they'll say, I kind of follow depending on what the sound is that I'm making. And I think part of that as well is because as we do this, we find our way towards comfort and control, right? And especially vocalists such as yourself, who you've done like the long tour runs, like you've done like the night after night after night for long periods of time on the road. Finding a way to do these comfortably and in a way that's controlled is pretty damn important. Because you don't want to get halfway through your tour and be like, whoops.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like you said, control. that's like, again, I use the weightlifting analogy,
Yeah.
if you're lifting and you're not doing it in a controlled manner, you're going to hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with vocals. If you're not doing it with technique and control, you're just going to rip something, you're going to blow something out. Like it's all relative. It's just, our bodies are meant to, just like if you get, like dudes that fight, like UFC fighters, if they get hit and they're not ready to brace for it, they're probably going to get knocked out. It's just, we have to have like that control over our bodies to not harm ourselves. And that's what people that are first learning to scream, they tend to just use just their throat and just so much air. It's so much air control. Air control is like the end all be all to me. Like, because if you're just like, and just let it all out, you're putting so much strain on your throat and you're going to be hoarse within,
minutes, seconds, maybe even. Yeah. And so here's a question for you then. When you are doing your vocals, I think I can anticipate your answer. But when you're doing your vocals, do you feel, because in clean singing, there's this concept, and I know that you've been, since the Valley, you've been doing a lot more of it. But there's this sense that as you're singing, you don't actually feel like you are breathing out. You're sort of just accessing your support, relaxing, placing the sound, and then the sound sort of is just coming out of you while you're hanging out. Do you feel similarly when you do your vocals that you're activating a sound, but you're not really breathing out? And if you were to hold a section, granted, everybody's got a limit, but if you were to hold a section, you don't feel like you really lost a whole lot of air throughout that section. Again, given that, like, if you were to hold something for 30 seconds, okay, well, lung capacity is a thing. So yeah, do you feel like you're losing air, or more that you're generating sound and air is a part of that balance?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm doing vocals and stuff, I don't tend to like get winded. It just depends on, now if I'm like jumping around and flying around all over the stage, like, yeah, I'm not gonna have the same output. But to me, it's almost like it's like I don't know, like a balloon that you're just letting air slowly trickle out.
That's the analogy I always use. Always use the balloon trickle, right? And you don't have to squeeze that balloon, right? Because the air pressure, the physics of it, the air pressure here is going to be like, yo, I got to get out of here. The inner city's too crowded. I'm moving out to the suburbs, right? Right. And so it's like that same thing. So yeah, that's really good air balance when you feel like you just sort of activate and then the air is just leaking out of that balloon. And for a lot of people watching who are like, oh, how is Phil's like tone so consistent and rounded? That's kind of a vague word we use a lot, rounded, basically meaning it just has good resonance to it. It doesn't sound flat. Well, this balloon thing that you're mentioning is a massive part of that. Cool. Well, that's super fast. Anything else on that before we hop back? Because like, I guess we have a song to listen to. I suppose that's what we're doing today. Anything else before I jump back in?
I mean, again, like for gutturals and like those like mid, like beefy, like kind of like ogre sounding ones, the ones that are like, yeah, or like, Ugh. Yeah. That is more or less like the air is, I'm getting it in and then I'm just creating an air leak to just let it slowly get out. And then your air doesn't fully come out. You're keeping most of the air, but then once you're done with that sentence, let it all out, then start it again. Now for like the ones where I'm just like mainly in this song, like I'm still kind of using that technique, but these are so much more intense and like that I'm definitely letting a lot more air out. But like for those lower tones and stuff, like it's literally just an air trickle. Like, yeah. But for like these ones, I'm just like bracing and just, just like letting out,
Sure.
But I still have control. You know what I mean? Like that's just something that people have to eventually kind of grasp onto, like to be able to control it. And but for the ones that are going on to this song mainly are, the ones that I'm like kind of letting more air out than I normally would.
Sure. Gotcha. Well, that's you know, before the video, you were like, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to explain things, but those were all like excellent analogies and excellent examples. So yeah, that's great. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and jump back in.
I bring the gift of resurrection. The power returns from which it came. Now grant me what I have gifted. Mother, Father, come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me. In blood and bone I carve an oath to surgeons born from the shadow. Tonight we bathe in blood and drink from the skull of the beast that left his heart so cold. In a perfect world, we could take his whole family soul and fill our hearts with who I am. For the beast in us all. Mother, I pray that your voice sings me to sleep. To sing my sanity from the sound of this blood-soaked symphony. Father, I pray that your hand is warm again. My pain will never end until you both come back to me. Come back to me.
All right, I'm going to pause it there. I know it's a terrible spot, but we got to pause it sometimes for the video not to get taken down, right? Pauses are a safeguard. People don't know that. Let's go to 320. Give it kind of like a nice minute-ish, right?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
That works.
I like those numbers. Here we go. Oh yeah, you're like in the middle of the ritual, so this is perfect.
Yeah.
In blood and bone I carve an oath to surgeons born from the shadow. Tonight we bathe in blood and drink from the skull of the beast that left his heart so cold. In a perfect world, we could take his whole family soul and fill our hearts with who I am. For the beast in us all. Mother,
Yes.
I pray that your voice sings me to sleep. To sing my sanity from the sound of this blood-soaked symphony. Father, I pray that your hand is warm again. My pain will never end until you both come back to me. Come back to me. Come back.
Ooh, that like dripping sound we're left with. Oh. Oh, that's gnarly. Ooh, kind of makes me like shiver a little bit, right? I guess that makes sense. We just watched like a ton of like falling blood and things like that. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and let's start wrapping it up there. So before I get into my kind of silly story, excellent song. I love, you know, kind of what you were talking about, how you're making the vocals more appropriate for the story that you're trying to tell. I think that's phenomenal. I think it came across really well in this song. And you're, you know, now that you're telling me the whole song was kind of built around that riff, that sort of chuggy tone, it really kind of puts into context what you know, your vocal choice is a lot better. And it made it a lot more interesting to listen to. The whole thing is straightforward and yet nuanced at the same time. And so I really dig it. This is a 6-track, and it makes me, you know, even more excited for the album coming out like what? Like the 29th, so that's like what? 14, 18 days, I think, if my math is right, which it usually isn't. So yeah, man, I'm excited about it. Any other thoughts that you have on the song, or any other things that you want to mention?
Not too much. I mean, I guess like one thing I didn't really say was like, I guess like the name of the song is like the band, the guy, like the guys from, the guys in the band, like didn't come in until like near the end of the video.
Sure.
Because if you look at it, like it's on my eye and then it zooms in. So basically what it's trying to say is like the Bloodsoaked Symphony is them. They are the symphony of the music and it's supposed to be like they're in my head and I can't get rid of this song. It just plays over and over and over and over and over again. And, and that's why I say like, Mother, I pray that your voice sings me to sleep to save my sanity from the sound of this blood-soaked symphony. Because that in the story, he's just in this realm, the valley. He's in the valley, like the valley after I left. And it's just it's almost like a torturous like song or symphony in his head, and he just can't get rid of it, and he's just like it's driving him crazy. Right. And to bring them back and to clear his mind of this like just darkness in his head, that's not the main reason he's resurrecting them, but like he knows that once he brings them back that it's going to make everything better. It's all the craziness is going to stop, and things are going to be better for him. But he's basically made it into this realm. He's basically been born into this realm, and he's just like, he's got this like just crazy, just, blood-soaked symphony, as if it's like, they call it blood-soaked because obviously that means like death or, just like, I don't know, it's evil. And right. He's it's just in his head, and it's just like it's driving him insane. And that's when it zooms into the eye, like the band is playing inside of my brain. And yeah, that's that is what the Bloodsoaked Symphony is. It's something in my head that it won't stop playing, and I can't. It's almost like those people that have what's that thing called where they have like a constant ringing in their ears?
Oh, tinnitus or tinnitus.
Yeah. And it's just some of those people that have that, like they commit suicide because they just can't take it anymore. Like it just drives them mad. And that's exactly what this Bloodsoaked Symphony is. It's just something in his head that he just keeps hearing over and over and over and over again. It's just driving him insane. It's like hearing a song, if you hear a song over and over and over again, it just starts to drive you crazy.
Yeah. Yes. I know a lot about that. But that's a story for another day. Well, I mean, there's lyrically, conceptually, there's a lot of depth here. There's so much going on. It really makes me excited to kind of put this in the greater context of the Valley and then your album coming up here. So yeah, I appreciate you giving us all that insight and that nuance. Now, if you want, I'll tell you this kind of silly story. You might just get a kick out of it. But it's probably fun. So in reality, if it wasn't for your performance of Unanswered, you know what I'm talking about. I may not have like started dating and eventually married my current wife. Well, my only wife. So this is true. So I was at our old bassist. He was just having like a small Oktoberfest get together at his place. And he was like, "Yo, Mark, you should come by. You should, it'll be fun." And I, of course, I was like, "Sure, whatever." And so I'm there, and like at this point I was single. I was happily single. I was really enjoying just doing my own thing. So I had like, when this beautiful redheaded woman walks through the door, my first thought wasn't like, "Oh, I got to impress her." I was just like, "She's hot." Anyway, and I kind of just went on. So my buddy and I, we're having some beers or whatever. And like she and I are just having like basic conversation. And I was like, "You know what? I want to show this lady my favorite metal vocal performance." And I was like, "Hey, you, what's your name?" And she's like, "Katie." And I was like, "Katie, would you like to see my favorite metal vocal performance?" And for some reason, because she doesn't like metal, like this, like the type of music that you and I are into and create, she avoids listening to it. Although she's very supportive of me, and she listens to stuff and she gives it a thumbs up, with a little tweak in her eye. And she said yeah for some reason. And so I showed it to her, and for whatever reason, she thought it was kind of like charming how excited I was about it. So when I asked her out for coffee a couple days later, she said yes, because she thought like me just being like, oh, listen right here. See here how the tone thing's out, and all your prayers will go. I was like, oh, it's so sick. And for some reason, even though she probably would never want to listen to that again, the way that I was excited about that song made her think that maybe I was somebody she wanted to go to coffee with. So appreciate you setting me and my wife up. Means a lot to me, man.
Hey, the universe works in mysterious and weird ways.
Who
knows that, as soon as that was created, you were a married man.
Yeah, not me. I sure didn't. But anyways,
but I can't take credit for that. They put the show on. I was just there. So, I mean, it makes me feel good that I've contributed to it, but all the thanks goes to the Suicide Silence guys and all them for putting that together and giving me the opportunity. But hey, if it spawned a marriage, I'm all for that.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, obviously I wasn't there, but I watched a lot of the performances, and they put on an amazing show. And I think a really good way to, commemorate Mitch as well.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to get sad if we talk about that. So, that being said, let's go ahead and wrap it up here. Phil, I really appreciate you being here with me today and doing this video. Again, for anybody, if you liked this content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We do have a Patreon where we have events every month, and a lot of the times when we make these co-reaction videos, not all of the footage makes it, because like already we're at an hour and 11 minutes. So, we'll probably have to cut some of it, but anything that we cut, we put on the Patreon for y'all to see. So with that being said, looking forward to the album on the 29th. Again, Phil, thank you for being here. Anything, any social media or any streaming platforms or anything you want to plug before we wrap it?
Nah, I won't plug I usually don't really plug myself. If you want to find me, you could probably find me somewhere, but, you'll just have to go searching for it.
Fair enough. All right. Well, with that being said, as always, my Cardivox Academy people, many thanks, much love. I'm out.